Dr. Murray is present with counsel, Mr. Chernoff, Mr. Flanagan, Mr. Gorgian, and Mr. Pena. The people, by Mr. Walgren and Ms. Brazil, all 12 jurors and the 5 alternates have joined us. To everyone, good afternoon. Good afternoon to the jurors. It is amazing how tofu can be used in any conceivable recipe, ladies and gentlemen. That may be an inside joke with the jurors in terms of culinary experiences, but I hope you enjoyed it. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to resume with the proceedings here today, and it's my understanding the people have another exhibit they wish to mark because there is another stipulation entered into by the parties in this case. The verbal stipulation will be contained in a written exhibit, so you don't have to feverishly write down everything. And also there's going to be a very brief amount of further direct examination by the people of Dr. Shafer. So at this time, let us have the stipulation, and then Dr. Shafer can be recalled. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. And just for clarity, this is essentially supplemental to the stipulation from yesterday, People's 221. May this be marked People's 221A, Your Honor?
It is. 221A, since it relates very directly to the exhibit marked yesterday, 221. 221A is?
Thank you, Your Honor. In the stipulation marked People's 221, the term tab handle refers to the plastic portion of the label located on the side of the vial, which can be used as a hanging mechanism.
Is that stipulated by the people?
It is, Your Honor.
By the defense, Mr. Chernoff?
It is.
Thank you. The stipulation is accepted by the court, and as you know, ladies and gentlemen, that means the facts are not disputed. They must be accepted by you. Thank you. At this time, do you wish to inquire of Dr. Shafer?
Please, Your Honor.
We'll have Dr. Shafer retake the stand, please. Dr. Shafer, good afternoon, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Do you acknowledge, sir, you're still under oath and still sworn to tell the truth?
Yes, I do, sir.
Thank you. Before we resume with further brief examination, if you want, you can pour the water into that cup and place the water container on the side, down below. Thank you. Resumption of direct examination by the prosecution, Mr. Walgren.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
While he's getting set up, Your Honor, I also have a hard copy of the propofol simulations that were demonstrated through the PowerPoint yesterday. May the hard copy be marked People's 222?
222.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You're welcome.
Good afternoon, Doctor.
Good afternoon, Mr. Walgren.
I just have a few brief questions, Dr. Shafer. In regard to your consideration of the evidence in this case, and in particular to your analysis as it relates to any toxicology findings by the coroner's office, did you review what's been marked as People's 168, this 8-page toxicology report summarizing all the findings by the coroner's toxicologist?
Yes, I have.
And were you able to personally confirm that those findings were, for lack of a better word, showed the results of the pure drug as opposed to any metabolite?
Yes, I have.
Okay. And were the results in People's 168, for example, for the propofol and all the findings, depicting the true level of drugs in the various specimens as opposed to any metabolite?
Yes, I have reviewed the standard operating procedures.
Objection, non-responsive.
Yes is the answer,
Yes.
and that remains. Everything thereafter will be stricken. Sustained.
Thank you. And you were able to confirm that through your review of the actual standard operating procedures of the coroner's office for these various tests?
Yes, I'm holding it in my hand, and I've read it carefully, and this is, in fact, an assay of just propofol and an assay of just lorazepam. There is no use of beta-glucuronidase to back convert the metabolite, the glucuronidase, to the original drug. So it is just as represented. It is the drug and does not include the metabolite.
Thank you. Now, in your demonstration yesterday when you set up the infusion set and the propofol bottle, have you also, prior to doing so, did you get a chance to review People's 29, the slit saline bag, as well as People's 30, the empty 100 milliliter bottle of propofol?
Yes, I inspected both.
And would People's 29 and 30 be, based on the dimensions and the slit and the bottle, could they be utilized in exactly the same way you demonstrated yesterday, with a spike in the bottle and with People's 30 being actually placed inside People's 29?
Yes.
And in your work on this case, Dr. Shafer, did you make your spreadsheet software available to the defense so that they could run any simulations they wish to run?
Yes, I did.
And did you also make it known that you were available to assist and run any simulations if they wish to have your assistance?
Yes.
And does that offer still stand?
Absolutely.
Dr. Shafer, if someone dies with their eyes open, does that have any meaning from a clinical point of view?
No, it means if a person's eyes are open or closed, it doesn't mean anything in terms of the actual passing. I closed my own father's eyes a week ago. It doesn't mean anything if the eyes are open or closed.
Okay, it has nothing to do with the slow death, quick death, anything of that nature?
No meaning whatsoever.
Now, in describing and explaining the infusion setup to us yesterday, and in your review and conducting these various simulations, with that setup in place, were you able to rule out conclusively that Michael Jackson could have been left in the room alone with the infusion line in his leg, and Michael Jackson simply woke up and manipulated something, causing the propofol to flow into him?
No, that's a possibility.
And that would assume then that the infusion line was set up, was in place in Michael's vein, in Michael Jackson's vein, and then he was left alone and essentially abandoned by the doctor, Dr. Murray?
Correct.
Mischaracterization of evidence.
Just a moment. It's argumentative. The objection sustained. The last answer is stricken. Disregard it. Rephrase, if you'd like, Mr. Waldron.
That would assume in that scenario that the infusion line was set up, the propofol was in place, and that Dr. Murray then left Michael Jackson on his own in that state.
Correct.
And you had actually included that as a possible scenario in your April 2011 report, correct?
April 15th, that's correct. It's in that report.
And that is simply because the data explains to you the likely scenario that took place, but as far as what Michael Jackson did in that room, you can't rule it out one way or another.
That's correct.
Now, let's assume that scenario did take place. Would any of your opinions change as to Conrad Murray being directly responsible for Michael Jackson's death?
No, it just, if Michael Jackson had reached up, seen the roller clamp, and opened it himself, this is a foreseeable consequence of setting up an essentially dangerous way of giving drug, and is in no way exculpatory for the fact that Dr. Murray was not present and permitted this to happen while Michael Jackson was under his care. It doesn't change things at all.
And that's one of the reasons why a doctor needs to be constantly on site, constantly vigilant, and constantly monitoring a patient who's put into this sedative state?
Correct. It would still be considered abandonment.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Walgren, thank you. At this time, cross-examination by the defense. Mr. Chernoff?
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
Mr. Shafer, good afternoon.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
I want you to help me a little bit on your discipline of pharmacokinetics, all right? I know this is, I'm going to mark this as VV. I think it's also a people's exhibit. Just
Victor.
This is something that was shown to the jury by Mr. Walgren, and you were explaining what pharmacokinetic is. And what you said was that, is that right? Is this correct, that what this was shown to you to explain?
Yes, it's explaining the link between pharmacokinetics and dynamics.
I don't want to testify for you. I want to make sure we're on the same page here. And you said that pharmacokinetics deals with the movement of drugs through the body. Is that right?
Yes.
And integral to that is time.
Absolutely.
The body takes in drugs in various ways. Is that right?
Yes.
And one of the ways that you've mentioned is IV, and IV's intravenous injections one way, right?
Yes.
Intravenously, intramuscular, that's a way to get drugs into the body.
Yes.
Oral is another
Yes.
way. Anal,
Yes.
right? Suppositories. Even skin, transdermal.
That's correct.
Right. Am I missing anything?
Inhalational,
Inhalation. Good.
transmucosal.
And in all of those circumstances, there is dosing involved in getting those things into the body, getting those drugs into the body, right?
Yes.
And not just dosing, not just amounts, but also the number of doses matter, right? Dosaging.
Yes, the number of doses matter.
If I were to take one pill, in your calculations, if I were to take one pill, you would calculate perhaps the concentration of that in the body based on one pill, right?
Correct.
If I were to take one pill and then 5 minutes later take another pill, you would do a different calculation.
Yes.
Okay. And that is pharmacokinetics in determining concentration from dosage.
Correct.
So am I right about all of that?
Yes.
Okay. In this case, and of course you have computer programs that can do that for you, right? You
Yes,
mentioned you actually formed one yourself. You created one.
Yes, I have them here. I can run them if you like.
Okay. No, I believe it. You said you were one of two people in the world that you go to for this kind of information, right?
I believe that misstates my testimony.
Well, is it more than two?
There's a small community.
Small community. All right. The computer programs that you have created and others can help you determine concentration from dosage. Is that right?
Correct.
And if you apply correct dosage information, then you can be pretty certain about concentration at a certain point based on the computer simulations.
The certainty is related to the certainty in the models, but good models provide an estimate of both the mean and the expected variability around the mean numbers. So good models actually provide the full range of likely responses.
Because people are different.
Correct.
And when you're talking about concentration, the computer takes into account essentially data that has been accumulated through studies. Is that right?
Correct.
And this data are based on human beings that are studied in certain experiments and studies. Is that right?
That's correct.
All right. And people vary.
Correct.
I may take a lorazepam and pass out, a 2 milligram lorazepam. You may be just fine. People vary.
Not that much.
But that's why you need to take a mean of that. Is that right?
The mean is a typical response, and it's actually called the typical